is up? Welcome to the ISTE Review version of Making Learning Addictive. I am your host, Brian Romero Smith, and I got my ace in the hole, my boom coon. I mean, I forget all the nicknames we used to say back in the day. But Valerie Lewis is joining us this evening for this wonderful ISTE Review. She is the better half of Pass the Scope EDU. Y'all know her. Give her a round of applause as we bring Valerie in. What's going on, Valerie?
Hey, Brian, it has been a minute, but this feels like home. It is home.
Oh, yes. And this year we are taking ISTE to Nolens.
Yeah, wow. That's going to be a good time.
It is going to be a really, really good time. So, I mean, you're going to be joining virtually. I'll be there in person. But we're still going to tag team this Pass the Scope EDU and do what everybody expects us to do and bring the people's perspective to the conference.
Absolutely.
And for those that are joining us tonight and those that are watching on replay, that is essentially what this is all about, giving you a glimpse of what to expect going into the ISTE conference. It's the first for many. It's many people are veterans. This is my ninth. We're gonna have some guests on it that been there plenty of times, even more than myself. But this is for everybody. Because each ISTE experience is a little different. This will be my first time doing it in New Orleans. I don't know if it's been in New Orleans before, so this would be cool. So I'm glad there's a lot of sessions going on because otherwise I'll be eating all the time.
And hopefully not throwing beads.
No. I'm a little too old for the bead thing. No, for real. So, before we bring on, our guests for the evening, we've got a couple people coming on that are going to talk a little bit about what they're presenting, at ISTE and what to expect. We have an essential question that we're going to ask for each day. And today is that wonderful question, what do you pack? Besides clothes, of course you're going to bring some clothes.
Yes.
And all of that. But this is something that, I don't know if you've seen it before, Valerie. I used to do a video every year, let them know what's in my bag.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Claudio used to do that. A couple of us in the community used to do that. Just let everybody know what you can take just to be prepared for the session. So, what are some of your suggestions of what to pack for the conference?
Absolutely. So you definitely hit the nail on the head in terms of clothes, but let's talk about the type of clothes.
Okay. All right. Let's break it down.
Comfy clothes. So I think a lot of times when people think about a conference, they're thinking about, they're educators. And so do I need to come, suited and booted? And do I need to look professional, so to speak? Guys, at the end of the day, what you are really wanting to take away from the sessions is knowledge. It is not a fashion show.
Right.
It is not it's not a job interview,
Nope.
so to speak. You will network, but you want to make sure you bring your comfortable walking shoes because you will be moving, you will be sitting. Let's just put it this way. Think about yourself similar to a kindergarten teacher. You want to have that loose fitting clothing because you don't know who may be tugging at your legs. You don't know when you have to break out in song, dance, movement. You don't know when you need to be moving at high speeds.
Right.
So you want to make sure that, and it's summertime. And if Nolens is anything like it is right now in Georgia, it's hot.
Oh, yes. It's going to be a little crispy.
Yes. So definitely in terms of clothing, do your tennis shoes. If it's your flats, if it's your Keds, if it's your Vans, whatever it is, just, be comfortable. Do you?
Absolutely. Yes, you definitely want to be comfortable because you're going to be all over the place. Even though you may have a set schedule, and we're going to talk about scheduling tomorrow, things are going to change, going to transition, and you may have to be over here, versus, when you had originally planned that you were right in front of you. It just depends on what's going on. So definitely be comfortable. I do think there's some other essentials, that a lot of people, they don't necessarily forget, but, have to be reminded of. It's going to be a long day, right? So you definitely want to bring an extra charger. Now that's for your device and for your phone.
Yes.
And for your phone, those charging banks, if you got an iPhone, got MagSafe, they got MagSafe chargers, give you additional charge. You're going to need it because you're going to be taking notes, taking pictures, especially, if you're active on Twitter, and on some of the social media, and you see some folks that you haven't seen in real life before. Yeah, it's going to be a selfie fest, as well. So
Yes.
you definitely want to take that. The other thing I tell people all the time, bring some snacks.
Yes. Yes.
Conference food is expensive.
Yes,
So
it
so
is.
uh, intentionally, I'm staying in the Residence Inn, so I'm going to stock up my fridge, with stuff that I can actually take with me to the conference, so I can actually stay well fed and hydrated. But don't bring a big water bottle. I
Mm-mm.
tell people all the time, don't bring a big, don't don't bring a Yeti.
Mm-mm.
One, you're going to lose it,
Yep.
and once it's filled, it's heavy.
It's cumbersome.
Right. And you don't want to take all of that around. And that brings me to that last thing that I like to tell people to start thinking about. Some people want to take their laptop. You're not going to necessarily always be in a room where you're going to have a space to put the laptop on a table or something like that. And your laptop carries weight and it gets heavier throughout the day. So if you've got an iPad or a tablet, or if you've learned to be productive on your phone, that would be my highest suggestion, to do as much as you can minimize the weight that you're carrying during a conference, the better.
Yep, absolutely. And if you got a nice backpack to put all of that in, just load it all up, put it on your back. That keeps you hands free so that you can carry the phone and keep moving. I like the part about when you mentioned the backup charger for your phone, because the one thing that you don't want to do is have to be confined to an outlet space.
Yep.
That outlet space where you're plugged up can be time away from a session that you
Yep.
actually need to be attending.
Yep.
And there aren't that many outlets in the session
They are
space,
premium.
right, for you to be plugged up. So you really want to make sure you have your portable charger so that way you can be on the go, moving and charging all at the same time.
Wisdom. Wisdom. And last but not least, I know a lot of people have other stuff to add. I'm just going to pull out the most essential thing in my bag.
Freshen it up.
Bring some gum.
You don't want to be a yuck mouth.
All right, all right, all right. It's probably the worst segue ever to bring in our first guest talking about yuck mouth. But ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to have some folks come on here and talk about what to expect from their sessions leading up into ISTE. And our first guest tonight, very excited to bring on, I'm just going to bring him on here right now, Mr. Tim Needles. What's up, Tim?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, Tim.
Going well. We're already having a little fun already.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So I am a high school art teacher, and I wrote the book Steam Power for ISTE. So this is going to be my 8th ISTE. So currently I work as a ed tech coach in Smithtown School District in Long Island. I also work with ISTE in all different kind of capacities. So like I work with the CCL team and some other people. I also work with Adobe. And I've been doing these ISTEs for quite a long time. So I remember going back to Atlanta, back in the early 2000s when that one was really, really hot too. So,
Yeah.
You guys shared some good advice for sure. The walking shoes is going to be huge. Light clothing is really important.
Yeah. I forgot to add compression socks too.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to be flying, get some compression socks and keep your feet from swelling, because it's going to be hot. And if you don't hydrate, appropriately, you may have a little bit of that as well. So trust me, I'll be in some compression socks, for sure. Well, Tim, you got a lot going on, bro.
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So yeah, this is, I've done a lot virtually before, but this is the most I've ever done in person. So, I'm finding that I'm still getting new things added to it. So, I have a couple sessions. I mean, I always love doing Strengthen Your Steam Power game. That's one of my favorites. I do a different version of it every year. So it's like all my favorite games and gamification resources and really anything that's fun. Because, when I go to a conference, one of the things I want to walk away with in any session is, I want some tangible things that I could use. So I just share I think this year it's going to be 20 different tools that I use in that session. So, that's one of my favorites. The playgrounds are always fun. So I'm doing the creativity playground and the storytelling playground. So both of them are always fun. I like being able to meander The sessions where you're focused on one thing is great, but then having the freedom to walk around and talk to people and play hands-on is really good too.
Yeah.
So it should be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And I know Valerie got some questions for you, but
Sure.
I just appreciate the fact, because I'm a dad of some very artistic kiddos, musically, vocally, artistically, drawing, dancing, all of the arts. So when we talk about STEAM, that's important for me because that's an aspect I think that is necessary and vital, to the whole problem solving and creative thinking aspect. And when many people are doing STEM programs, we leave out the arts. So,
Yeah.
Give me, your why this is so important to you besides you being an art teacher.
Well, I totally agree with you, but and I knew that, like, all right, so I'm an artist, right? So like obviously I believe in STEAM. But when I wrote the book, I wanted to make sure that, it's not just my opinion. So I actually went to NASA and I interviewed people, and I went to Brookhaven National Labs. I went to, science people. I went to math people. I went to engineering locations, and I interviewed a bunch of professionals. And, it was unanimous. Like everyone found that creativity is absolutely an essential component. They go back to, Da Vinci, right? Like the ultimate STEAM person. And having that art and design segment is just really, really important. I mean, when you think about what our biggest output is these days, media and entertainment and technology, they're just essential to that. So it's also just a burgeoning field that's always changing and developing. So I think when you take on real problems, especially in the classroom, and you let students kind of use some of that project-based learning with STEAM and interdisciplinary learning. I think that, when you're able to knock down the walls of the classroom and just get to the core of learning, that's what it's really about. And it allows for expression, and, it helps your soul too. So, I mean, like, there's nothing quite like that.
Yeah. Helps your soul.
Yes.
That's it. And and I'm glad that you mentioned that, Tim, because at a time like this, when we're coming out of this pandemic, where we're seeing a lot of the social emotional piece that's needed, and where we're even having conversations with individuals that feel like it's not a necessary component. It's almost like saying, hey, I know you need this outlet, but I need you to bottle it up, compartmentalize it, make sure that we don't talk about it until after school, and let our parents or outside therapists deal with it. And I just think that it's a ridiculous thing to say, because I don't think that we as humans can say, okay, well, I don't want to address this issue that I'm dealing with. So when you talk about this outlet, this need to be able to express the interconnectedness, the cross-curricular piece, I think that's what separates how can I put this nicely?
You gotta be nice.
Yeah, the textbook teachers
Yeah.
versus the gifted and talented teachers that truly understand the art and science of it all. So if you've got that person who's just textbook, I'm just following the script, I'm following the manual, and I'm not coloring outside of the lines. But that teacher that understands the whole child, understands the art and science of teaching. And so when I'm teaching math, I should be able to bring in the art teacher in that, because the number one question, again, that kids have been asking us from the beginning of time is, why? Why is this important? Why do I need to see this? And so if we're not bringing in those different aspects, those different mediums, those different areas, we never really fully address their question.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a weird thing. I find that, like, one of the things you do as a teacher that's most important is really connecting personally with students. I mean, because, like, once you connect with them personally, that's when there's real learning, because, there's always a little bit of a distance before that. And, you really need to get to know who the students are and share who you are. And, that is, the arts is a great vehicle for connection, for sharing, for understanding yourself, for understanding others, for, communicating in any kind of way. And I think it's so important, especially in the pandemic. I mean, one of the ironies of the pandemic is that there's a silver lining in that. Social emotional learning was, front and center for, the first couple of years. And I really think
Right.
it's so valuable. It's so important for, for schools to teach the whole child. And really, it's not just about academics. It's also about, who people are, and sustainable living, I think.
Yes. Yes.
These couple of days I've been, filling my cup, as we really talk about these embedded experiences. A lot of people are afraid to tackle it because they don't necessarily know how it should be, how it works inside of a regular classroom, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it just begins with the basis of starting a relationship with hello, a check-in. How is it that you're doing? You build from there. But if we don't start, we'll never get to the finish line or even the halfway point. So thank you for that. But let's just jump into a couple of the sessions that you've got going on. You are going to do the creativity playground. So what are we expecting there?
So for the creativity playground, I am sharing, since Chromebooks and tablets have really taken over a big part of education, I'm sharing, all of my favorite Chromebook and tablet apps and tools and projects. So everything from Adobe Creative Cloud Express and some of the projects, infographics. And, one of the nice things is, working as an ed tech coach, I get to co-teach with lots of different subjects. So, all of the things I'm going to be sharing are really valuable. Like you could grab something for any discipline on any level. So, I stock it full of everything from animation to augmented reality, a bunch of different emerging tech that works well on these devices, because so many schools adopted these devices, and the truth is, like, a lot of tools just don't really work well on it, or it's just not even available. So, I'm focusing on those two vehicles for that session in the creativity playground. So that should be interesting. And, there's a bunch of my colleagues that are going to be joining, and it's such a great, if you look at all the people in that, it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. I like the playgrounds, it's a little bit for me, a little bit more intimate, because you could go a little bit deeper, but you could also be more intentional about what it is you're saying, because people are asking these questions about what it is they're actually seeing. So it takes you off script, so to speak, what we would typically prepare for a presentation or a session. But you can really get down into the nitty gritty of what it is that you're doing and talk about those real personal experiences and how it's impacting with your students. So I love that.
Mhm.
But I see poetry on here as well.
Oh yeah. I love, because I love all of the arts, right? So like I write, obviously, and I have we're going to be doing, one of my favorite projects is video poems, and we do them with augmented reality. We do them with animation. We do them with lo-fi tech as well. So there are all these different ways of doing poetry. I think poetry is a great tool for really any classroom, because it doesn't matter. You could change the subject matter of what you're writing about, but the form itself is so free. You're able to do so many different things, and it's fun too. One of the after parties I'm going to be doing, Carl Hooker has an after party where he's doing on Monday for the EdTech Poetry Slam. So I get to actually perform some poetry on stage as well, which would be fun.
So you are performing, huh?
Yeah.
I just want you to know that I am the defending champion. I do own the belt.
There you go.
Are you coming for the belt, Tim? Are you coming for the belt?
It should be good.
Now, I really love that piece that you mentioned with the poetry, because as we know, in school and in education, literacy is a big deal. And so when you allow students to be able to talk about those things that are important to them and do it in their own way. And you mentioned something about the video poetry, which I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that looks like and how might a teacher embed that, because the traditional way of doing poetry is write it down, follow this stanza, verse, or whatnot. But you mentioned integrating some augmented reality and those kind of things. So how might a teacher be able to put a spin on their poetry lesson this upcoming school year?
Yeah, so there's all different ways. I mean, like, because you know, there's so many different forms of poetry. So it depends on what kind of form you're looking for. So I like to start out with some things like haikus, you know, because it's such a there's a interesting limitation, and the irony is that limitations allow for more creativity sometimes, because you know you have you know this box that you have to find an interesting way out of. So what I do is I'll have students write first, and then I'll just have them create all these different visuals. So I like to actually start the video poems, sometimes from writing, sometimes from visuals, sometimes from audio. So we use all different inputs to begin. And really, that's a really creative brainstorming process in the beginning. And then we use a bunch of different tools. So, like, I've done everything from limiting students to using like 4 or 5 pictures from their phone that they took, and then writing a poem connecting them. I've done things where I've given students an opportunity to film one clip, and then write, you know, a haiku, and you know, do it as a voiceover where it's integrated. And I've done things where they actually edit together a full kind of narrative video poem that's story based. So it's really flexible. It works in so many different ways, and there are so many different tools available to do it. So it's just really interesting. So, like, you know, I like to use some AR tools like Weird Type that allows you to do AR typography, which makes it really fun. And then, you know, we use Adobe Spark Video is a terrific app for just editing on devices. And then, you know, old school, we still use the cameras. Like, everyone has, you know, a smartphone these days, so it makes it really easy. You can create the whole thing just on a smartphone.
Yeah. So are you? So I noticed are you guiding the photo walk as well on Sunday?
I am, yeah. That should be fun. Yeah, it's interesting because this is my first time in New Orleans, so I had to do a lot of research on the city and kind of, like, you know, the visuals. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a nice way to start off the conference.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the very first sessions at 8 o'clock on Sunday. So we're going to be taking a walk around and seeing some of the highlights of the art around the area of the convention center.
Yes, for you early birds, you know, on a Sunday morning, it's actually a great time to get out because it won't be as hot,
Yeah.
you know. But it's a great way to capture the city, you know, so to speak, and allow the city to tell its own story. You know, I love the photo walks when they do them in different cities, especially ones that haven't been to before. So that's really cool that you're leading that this year.
Yeah, it's always a really nice way to get to see the city, you know, because you're so invested in the conference. You're often in there, you know, in the convention center. You don't get a chance to get out. And, you know, with New Orleans, like, you have to go out in the morning and at night, really, because the afternoon is so hot. So, like, you know, it's a nice way to kind of get a little sense of the city before the convention really, you know, starts kicking.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tim, in that session that you mentioned earlier, I believe it's titled, was it Increase Your Steam Game? I believe it is.
Oh, yeah, the Steam game session. Yeah, strengthen your Steam game. Yeah.
Strengthen your STEAM game. So is that geared towards what teachers can do with students? Or is that anything for someone like me that's an administrator that could incorporate that with the adults in our building?
I think it's definitely both. You know, I just finished a degree in administration, so I can't help bringing that mindset to everything I do. And it's really valuable to really understand these different perspectives. But, you know, as a ed tech coach, you know, in our central office, I use these games during our superintendent's conference day because, you know, it's engaging learning. And I think I share a bunch of different tools from, like, you know, the things that everyone probably knows about, like Kahoot and Quizlet and stuff like that, to sort of new tools that people might not be familiar with, and kind of creating your own games and gamification, which is really, really potent. I mean, look at how successful with just ISTE alone, you know, creating the different animals that, you know, your team and, you know, the gamification that has happened in the live sessions for the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Awesome. I definitely want to hear a little bit more about those sessions, and we'll get the people's take on those things, because I think, again, it's critical for us as we're coming back into this next school year, because this one was brutal. I think we need to learn to play again, to laugh again. I think that the year was just so stressful. that people just want to do the bare minimum. They want to be out the door. They feel burnt out. And so sometimes just to be able to laugh, to reconnect, to play, to engage, to almost find our childlike characteristics, I think it's just, as you mentioned earlier, it's good for the soul. And
Yeah.
so I'd like to kind of get back to some of that soul stirring stuff, because we're seeing a point in education where there's a mass exodus happening.
Mhm.
There's a mass resignation, and for a variety of reasons. And we have to figure out ways to retain our good quality teachers, our veteran teachers, people that want to be there for kids. And it again starts back with the relationships, the connections that we're making with not just the kids, but with each other, because we are a team. Whether I'm in this building and you're in the building down the street, or you're in the building on the West Coast, we are all in this education thing together. And so we have to find ways where we can connect with each other. So I'm really interested on putting some of that, putting some of the things that teachers are stressed out about to the side a little bit, and just taking care of the people. And so maybe through the games, that's a way to start and a way to do it.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, no, play is just, it's healing. And, having fun and sort of like getting down, and it allows people to connect in like a more, less structured way, which is really good too. It really just like lets the air out sometimes, because it's like the tension has been really high, and teachers are very stressed and administrators are really stressed. And I think you need to bring then that sense of whimsy and play. And, because that's also really helpful for the students too. It works on both levels. Because, I understand that academics are important, but learning can be fun. And learning should be fun. It really helps. Like, everyone wants to go to a job where they enjoy it and they have connections with people that really matter. I mean, that's ultimately what's important. And I think that that's one of the things that these kind of games and this sense of play really, really help with.
I'm glad you said that. I've been trying to help people make that connection for the longest. You don't ever want to work in a job that's no fun.
Yeah.
Not at all. So why do we make it not fun for our kids? And we're supposed to be preparing them for the future. That is just asinine to me. So I'm glad you said you said that. See, I can say this stuff now. I'm out of the classroom. For real. And I just heard from one of our guests. We just had a scheduling conflict, so we won't get our 7:30 guests in, but we'll have our 7:45 guests coming in here. Not a problem. So I guess we're gonna hang with Tim a little bit if you got time. So you're in
Yeah, of course.
You're in New York, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm in Texas.
Oh, cool.
Valerie's in Atlanta.
All right.
And regionally, education is different. So in Texas, oh, there's Kat right there. Texas, I think Kat is actually in Waco, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. She just hop out. Art is usually the first thing that goes.
Yeah.
When we struggle with budgets, especially during this pandemic, as we see budgets, shrink, even regardless of what the government provides, how they disseminate those funds is it's not necessarily equitable. And we find that many of us cut our art programs, many times. Do you see that happening in the New York area at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a problem, certainly across the country, and if you look at the most successful schools, places like Norway and Finland and Singapore, arts is just a core element of learning, because they understand that. So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, because of, I think that education really is still kind of stuck in this old school thinking. And you have the core subjects, and I understand that they're valuable, but that's the whole, reason I actually wrote the book Steam Power is that arts is the connective tissue between all of these things. I am really fascinated with science and space and things like that, and then I was happy to learn that NASA hires artists to actually help them problem solve, and they brought interesting elements like origami into building the most recent space telescope. So like I think that it's so important. And then unfortunately, it's one of the first things that gets cut because it's just not mandated in the same ways, and some of the structure of how schools have traditionally worked. So my dream is to retire at some point and then have a second career where I could work at like a lab school, that really pairs together these subjects, because I think that as an artist, I could approach any subject with curiosity, learn about it, and then, find different perspectives. And I think that's an important thing to understand. Like, one of the strengths of America is that we have such a great diversity, and that diversity is valuable because it lends all of these different perspectives. And that works the same way with different disciplines. And I think that art brings a unique perspective and a creative approach. So I think that's so important. But unfortunately, you do see art being one of the first things cut. I mean, not in my area, my school district, thankfully, but certainly in some of the surrounding school districts, you do see that.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I'm going to challenge you, Tim, to be a disruptor and not wait until retirement to go to a school, but build that thing right where you are right now.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
those kids that are in your building right now, or those that you support, whether it's across the district, they need it now. And I will say one thing that you touched upon, which I absolutely love and see that to be true, is that we have to come out of this traditional mindset of you're only successful because you excel in these academic areas. Because for someone like me, whose background is in special education and I support special ed kids, when you talk about a place like Nassau and a kid that has an IEP, they never see themselves there. Why? Because it's heavily focused on the math and science kids that do well.
Right.
And typically those kids are white males, Indian males, Asian males, minimally African-American males at minimum, if someone sees that talent and gift. And so now when you think about a kid, and I'm going to speak from just my experience, special ed kids are the ones that excel in the creative spaces.
Oh, yeah.
So if they can't see themselves as that artist for Nassau, because everyone's always so highly focused on the mathematicians or the engineers, then they never even can think about there's a space for me in Nassau, literally, to use my creative skills. And so I think we need to see more of that. And I'm hoping that you have painted several chapters in your book that highlight those things, because I think teachers are biased to some extent about who does well in the classroom and where they can go. And we have to shut that narrative down. Counselors are biased about what kids can get into what schools based off of what GPAs, but we don't look at the other skills that can take these kids far to be able to have a sustainable, livable wage. And those are the things that education needs to get back to. Because, see, we have these conversations round and round about reforming education, reimagining education, rethinking. I'm like, well, when are y'all going to stop thinking and start doing? Because I think we've thought about it long enough and the solution is already there. So do we have the doers now? I'm done with the thinkers. Where are the doers? Introduce me to those people.
Tim, this is why I love Valerie.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
So you hit the head, you hit that nail on the head, Tim, because that's really where it's at. And if we can think about tapping into those sources, we increase the graduation rates naturally. Kids now aren't complaining about the why and the physics, and because now they can see it applied in a way that they can do something with it versus what we're force feeding them. And so now we're solving the problem. We're increasing the workforce development, the economic development. We're addressing so much. And so we got to get there. So I'm excited to get a copy of this book, Tim, so I can see what you're in there talking about, because to me you sound like a doer. And Brian, we need to let other people know how they can get this book too, because I'm with the doers right now.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So, are you going to be doing any book giveaways? While you're there at ISTE?
Yeah, this is exciting. I mean, my book came out, March 24th, 2020, which was like the same week the schools closed here in New York. So this is going to be my first real book signing at ISTE. So yeah, we're doing a Meet the Authors event, and my book is going to be one of the prizes one day for a raffle, and you get to get some robots and some other cool things with it. I'm going to be doing a special event. One of the poetry events is actually at the bookstore on Tuesday, where we're taking some of the pages of my book and doing some blackout poetry, both digitally and old school. So yeah, I'm doing a bunch of book events. It's really exciting. And it's going to be like, I have all this swag that I've been sitting on for 2 years that I can't wait to give away and get to meet some of the people that have been reading the book and sharing it on Twitter and social media. So it's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. It's my first real book event since the book came out.
That's going to be awesome. I think, did you have the times on that schedule?
Yeah.
Where there they are, exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can definitely catch Tim at the conference. This is the list of his sessions. He's going all out Sunday through Tuesday. So starting with the photo walk. Which if you're in town at that time, I do suggest doing that at least once in your ISTE experience. And New Orleans is a beautiful place to do this. So many stories in the art around the city. So be a great time to do that, all the way to Tuesday. And that's where you're talking about the digital story playground and the blackout poetry, which I'm going to see if I can get over to, on Tuesday, because I think that'll be awesome as well. Tim, we truly, 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 truly thank you for joining us this evening and sharing everything. First of all, that's a lot to do. So, I'm going to check on you throughout the conference, make sure you're good.
I might bring the big water bottle. Yeah.
Okay, you might bring the big water bottle. Okay.
Make sure he's not laid out somewhere on Bourbon Street.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. But we appreciate you sharing. I think that's the beauty of it is what we glean from these sessions that we attend, but also those network opportunities and those opportunities to build relationships. So I'm glad we were able to meet with you today. And I hope that other people that are watching today and live or on replay, you get a chance to connect with Tim while you're at the conference and even beyond, because Tim is doing some great stuff. So once again, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure talking to you guys. Yeah, this is for intro to ISTE. Like, it's such a great conversation. Thanks so much.
No problem. I think Mel is ready for the book signing. So
Yeah.
Mel's not going to be at the conference. So darn it. So maybe we'll connect later on, and maybe we can we can help you out by doing some book giveaways as well, and support what it is that you're doing.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
And if it's not the book giveaways, Tim, and someone just wants to support financially, can we pick up the book on Amazon? What platforms can we get the book from?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. Wherever books are sold, you can find it. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right, cool.
Thanks for being a doer.
Thank you.
Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That was Tim Needles. Catch him at ISTE doing everything from Monday through Tuesday. All right. Wow, that was great.
Yeah. I love it. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to purchase the book for myself and just take a read. And, he brought up some very important things that I think we just really need to make sure that we center ourselves back on in education. And so I love it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think some of the things that we'll be able to take from the book will be great for some debriefing sessions. Before we move on with our next guest, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things I do want to say, about ISTE, you're going to get a lot of information, but you do want to make sure that you are intentional about taking some time to do a brain dump of everything that you're doing. And one of the things that we do here at Pastor Scope EDU is we allow for those debriefing sessions, after the conference. So, I haven't told Valerie this, but I'm gonna put it on her schedule anyway.
We got an after the bell debriefing
Yeah, we
session.
got After the Bell coming up soon. All
That's
right,
all right.
well, ladies and gentlemen, we got our next guests that are coming up, and when I tell you that I'm excited about this conversation, I'm not lying. We've got Dr. Holland and Kat Crawford that's going to come on two of the sessions that are going to be held at ISTE. One, talking to students, which is important to me. We're going to be talking about empowering student voices in the school to prison pipeline. We've had some really deep and needed conversations around this, so I'm excited about this. And then the other one, 911, what is your emergency responding to problems in the classroom? I want to dive deep into it. I don't know, what the session is actually about, so I can't wait to hear from this. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Dr. Holland and Kat Crawford.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, ladies.
Good evening, ladies.
How are you
Hey,
doing?
how's it going?
Good.
Good.
Kat, you got some nice, big, beautiful curls.
Oh, thank you. I always struggle with them on StreamYard. They never want to behave with the cameras on here. They're shooting out in every direction.
Oh, it's all good. It's popping right now. It's popping.
Yeah. Love it.
Now, but the
I got
problem is,
that Courtyard Marriott backdrop here, Crew Hotel behind me.
all right, shout out to
Yes.
the Bonvoy members out there.
That's right.
That's what's up. Now, Kat, you're actually in Waco. Is that correct?
I am, but not right now. I'm traveling to work with some teachers, but yeah, I am based in Waco, Texas.
Okay, that's just right down the street from me, practically. Well, I'm in Dallas. It's not really down the street, but down 35. How about that?
I have to head to you to leave the state every time I fly. So definitely hanging out in Dallas quite a bit.
Oh, come on, I'll treat you to lunch one day. Let me know when you're coming through.
I love it.
All right, well, ladies, tell us a little bit. Tell our audience a little bit of something about yourself.
Oh, wow. Where do we start?
Wherever you want.
Well, I can say, how about I share how Kat and I are connected, and then Kat can talk a little bit about our work. How does that sound?
That works.
Kat and I are lucky enough to be friends and colleagues. We met, 5 years or so ago in the WDC 17 Google Innovator cohort.
Okay.
So we connected as innovators in that group and formed a friendship over the years. And then we both we kind of worked our different ways and are just both passionate about the same things, and then ended up both working for Break Free Education. And that's why I say we have the honor and pleasure to be colleagues and friends who get to work together often and just truly love it. But yeah, Kat, why don't you talk about Break Free?
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been my space for 10 plus years. And as Kayla mentioned, she was doing some incredible work, which I hope we have a little time to touch on in Haiti, and just the work that she does and the heart that she has for kids, and just really seeing where professional development needs to occur in spaces for growth and education, just connected to the work that we were trying to do as a nonprofit organization at Break Free. And so our goal is to transform education inside of juvenile justice spaces. And we've worked with 46 different states. I have had the privilege, as you can see in my Courtyard Marriott backdrop, to live on an airplane and travel to different states to work with teachers, to visit with our facilities and spaces and help them rethink the way that education should live in the space. And we do that a lot with technology. We do it a lot with design thinking. We also design a ton of curriculum. And so that's another area that we're very honored to kind of bring our authentic learning experiences into the classroom in these spaces. And as you mentioned, in sort of our segue to come over here, that we are going to have some of our students joining us in a panel discussion, which we are just so honored to have their voices heard in this space, as they are not only from New Orleans, and they're part of a school that our organization partners to run.
Yeah. I could talk a little bit about that if you don't mind. So what Kat said is totally true. And I also get to travel around and have good relationships with some of these facilities in different states. And one of the facilities we have a great relationship with is Travis Hill Schools in New Orleans. And so when we realized ISTE was in New Orleans, Kat and I both said, "Oh my gosh, look at the amazing chance we have here." And it's taken quite a bit of coordinating. Let me tell you, the emails going back and forth. But we are hosting a student panel of what we like to say justice involved youth, but what you could consider formerly incarcerated students. So these were students who were in Travis Hill Schools. Travis Hill Schools has 2 juvenile detention facilities in New Orleans. One is for 17 and under, and one is inside the Orleans jail, the adult jail, so for 18 and over. And we do a lot of work with those teachers, like Kat was sharing, but we're so excited to have 6 students present with us at the conference for our Empowering Student Voices in the School to Prison Pipeline panel. And they are so excited. They have all kinds of things they're ready to talk about and ready to share with anyone who's going to attend. So that session is going to be on Tuesday at 11:30. And then they're also going to have some artwork available in the LACU stage later that afternoon. So if you definitely have a chance, I really encourage you to come hear these kids' stories. It's truly amazing, and it's going to be a wonderful time to just listen as educators and learn how we need to be better in the classroom, both in juvenile justice facilities, but as Kat often says, our students often come from general population classes and go back to general population classes. We call those the community schools. So the teachers in the audience are going to be teachers where juvenile justice students are coming from your classrooms and going back to your classrooms. And so it would be a really great time for you to learn a little bit about what happens to them in the interim.
Now, you said if they have time. If you aren't making time, I'm trying to figure out where else are you? If you're not in the space where kids are sharing their voice, I mean, you need to be in there. Make time. This is not an option at this point. Anyone involved with kids, this session right here, I mean, I can't even contain myself, and I know Brian knows it. I'm like, listen, you're talking about making time. Well, where else are you going to be? You need to be at this session, because right now I'm going, well, shoot, I may need to go ahead and get on this road and drive to New Orleans, because I want to hear from the kids directly. And we know discipline is something that plagues the schools at a high number. And then when you add race into it, I mean, there are just so many layers to it that this is important. This is critical to the space and the time that we live in. And so this conversation is the number one session in my book. It is the number one session.
I mean, I agree with you. I hope everyone agrees with you, and we're packed out in our room.
I totally agree with that, because I think it's one of those experiences where, we always say when we're traveling around, we have the honor to kind of open the door to a space that a lot of educators don't get to go into. And you don't often know what happens when a student leaves your classroom, and you don't know what they're bringing with them when they come back to you. And there's not a lot of work done through that transition process to really honor the work that a kid's done in that space, the restorative, the repair work that they've done to come back into your space and be welcomed. Is an honor for that kid who has really put in the time and the effort. And we see a lot of those issues again and again. I was just on a plane for 4 hours talking to somebody. I'm always trying to talk about our work, because I think people don't know a lot about what we're doing or what happens to these kids. And the person I was speaking with, we were talking about how a lot of students end up back into a space because of probation violations. And one of those status offenses is not wanting to return to an alternative school when they have the right to come back into their gen ed classroom. And so a lot of times, we really have to get kids who say, I want to make a change. I want to do something different. I'm passionate about education now that you've put all these great tools in front of me and sat down and really helped me think about the value of education. But you're then going to make me go back to this alternative school instead of my classroom. And that is a big hurdle because they're trying not to make associations with other kids who are making bad choices. They want a fresh start. And so it's so powerful to hear that from the kids themselves and understand that when they choose not to put themselves in that environment, sometimes it puts them right back in the juvenile justice space for truancy violation.
Okay, for one, I'm afraid to come to session because I might be crying, in the session. I can already feel the emotion, in this. And one of the things that I struggled with in working with teachers is getting rid of those biases that they have when working with students who are trying to change or trying to get back on track. But they struggle with letting go, of what they read in the Cume folder, whatever the case is, or you've got that kid. So how, are you working with these teachers to eradicate, that bias from the beginning?
That's a great question. So I think one thing that's, really interesting in our work is that we've spent so much time in this juvenile justice space that it kind of put me in a place where I wanted to create more awareness around this because we just hear what's happening at the end of, this very long pipeline. And so this is an effort to start that process that you're talking about, to hear from the students, because once they start sharing their stories and they tell you things like, my teacher back in my homeschool won't even explain something if I ask them, right? And it's like, if you knew that that kid values one-on-one time with you more than anything you do in that classroom, could you offer that to them? Right? Would that be a hurdle for you to create an environment where that kid could be successful? And so I think it's really breaking down what the students will tell you, allows them to find success in education, and then thinking about how we can create that space. And then we also just have to remove that stigma. We have kids that tell us, I go back to my homeschool and in one day I get searched 17 times.
Yeah.
Who would want to go to school?
Yeah. We often talk about labels as well. And sometimes, these labels don't even have to be labels that are uttered out loud. They're labels that the teacher has inside their minds. We look back to Rosenthal's study on the Pygmalion theory he did with rats. You place a set of rats. Kat's tired of hearing this, I'm sure, because I talk about it all the time because I'm such a nerd and I love research and data. But he had a study, I'll tell it quickly. He had two kind of cages, and there were a couple of rats in each cage, and he labeled one smart and he labeled the cages, one smart and one dumb, and he had grad assistants come in, and the goal was at the end of the week to get the rats to successfully go through the maze. And what they learned was every rat that was in the smart cage was able to successfully complete the maze, and the rats in the dumb cage weren't. Rats can't read, right? So it wasn't that the rats knew themselves that one was smart and one was dumb, but it was how the graduate assistants treated the rats in each cage. It was how the time they spent with them. And then he did the same thing with a school. He worked with a principal in a Chicago public school, and he tested like 30 kids, said he had a new academic test. This has been decades ago. And so he tested them, and then he gave the teachers a list of what he considered academic bloomers, right? I mean, he never even graded the test. He came back at the end of the year, and every student's name on that academic bloomers list had just excelled academically, and every student's name who didn't. And it has nothing to do with their academics. It has everything to do with the teacher's belief in the student. And so what we try to do is help teachers believe in the potential and the dignity of all students, no matter if they're in their JJ class, their juvenile justice class, or if they are coming back to their Gen Pop class, as Kat was saying. I mean, who would want to come to school and be searched 17 times, right? That's just ridiculous. And we often hear students say, I didn't know I liked school until I was in a secure school or a JJ school, because the teacher actually cared, or the teacher took time to sit with me and explain something that I didn't understand, or I mean, we've heard all different types of things like that. So we're hoping that those things are going to come across from our students as they share their stories.
I'm going to be there.
Wonderful.
We're so glad. I
I-
have to tell you an interesting story that I think that when we submitted this proposal, ISTE was probably like, "I'm sorry, what?"
yeah.
We
bet.
got waitlisted for a hot second, and then they
Mhm.
called us and they were like, "We need further clarification on this." They were like, "Wait, who are you bringing? What's happening?" And I think that it really shows how much they care about elevating these voices, because it would be one thing to just be like, "Yeah, this is important. We got to have it. Check." It's another to say, "I need the information to make sure this is done right,
Mhm.
to make sure these voices are heard, to give this all the consideration." Guys, we have to make sure that our students' identities aren't shared. We have to make sure that their stories are safe and protected, that they don't feel like they have to share things about themselves they don't want to share. And so, because of all of that, we've had to take we have a very long email chain with our ISTE friends.
Yes.
And I think that really shows their consideration to understanding that these are vulnerable voices that have to be heard.
I would say this is probably the first. That way we've seen a session, like this. This is going to be Tuesday, the 28th at 11:30. Oh, I'm looking at my calendar now. Where's on there is getting bumped. I'm sorry, y'all.
And it should not be the last of this type of
No.
conversation or session either.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
we agree with you.
We talk a lot about this, and prior to the pandemic, prior to George Floyd, restorative justice, became to me, unfortunately, was a trend, a hot topic, at the time, and a lot of people really didn't know how to implement it, at all. But I've seen those conversations kind of fade away, while the numbers are increasing, with our kids that are being matriculated through these unfortunate systems, and struggle getting their way back. So one, I applaud you for submitting the application for this. I wish, if I was your captain, looking at these sessions, I would have stamped it right there, from the get go.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I would love to continue to talk about that, but let's shift real quick into the 911. What is your emergency? Which all of this is an emergency anyway. Responding to problems in your classroom. Is this going to be more around classroom management at all?
So it's interesting because Kayla mentioned that she loves to dive into research. And so she and I are always sending each other different books. But there was a particular book that Kayla had us read this year that I think really drove us towards this session. We do love design thinking, and it's the foundation of this session. But there's a really interesting piece to it that comes from a book that I'm going to turn it over to Kayla to kind of chat about, and sort of the premise. And I think you'll find it really interesting how it applies.
Yeah, it's called Upstream Thinking: How to Solve Problems Before They Happen by Dan Heath. And Chip and Dan Heath are brothers, and they often write together. But I think Dan Heath published this on his own. And it's this idea of solving problems before they happen, but not only that, but solving them with multiple solutions and really tailoring that solution to work for the specific problem that you have. And he starts off with this old folktale about like two people standing in a river fishing, and like a kid comes down and is drowning. And so they do what any normal, kind human being would do. They jump in the river and save the child from drowning. And then before they know it, there's another kid and another kid and another kid. And before they know it, they're in this cycle of response and just saving these kids one after another from drowning, until eventually one of them gets out and leaves. And the other one says, "Where are you going?" And he says, "I'm going upstream to get the person throwing all the kids in the river." And so this whole book is based around that idea of solving problems before they happen. But not only that, it's what kind of problem do you have? So it's we can teach kids how to swim to solve this problem. We can give them life preservers to solve the problem. And it depends on how far upstream you want to go. That is determining what your solution is. And so he talks about that idea of upstream in there. So we've taken that and we've created our own kind of medical thing that I think Kat could talk about, called the CARE method. And how do you solve those problems in the classroom?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it was interesting because as we were looking at the problems that were occurring in the beginning of last school year, when we were diving into this book, it was a lot around sub issues, right? And we were thinking, you know, if you're coding out, if you got the blue code going in the hospital, that means kids are just running in the hallways. Like there are literally no teachers, no adults present. The school is just chaos, right? And I don't think a lot of places got there, but it was like as if they were there, right? And that's how we feel sometimes. And that's that moment of just kids coming down the river, drowning. If we take a step back, we often live somewhere in between those other two spaces, which is thinking about it like from kind of a reactionary method of like, okay, well, we've got like 2 subs today, so we're going to make it. But then I need some people to cover classes and like, I need this to happen. And I think that's, you know, okay for a while, but it gets really taxing and we're not actually solving or addressing any problems. You know, if we go back a little further, we start pulling people like all of central office is like half a sub, half a central office person. And like the teachers still have their breaks and they're still planning, but like those central office people had jobs too, you know, and like they're feeling stressed. And so somewhere else, there is a solution that is that like upstream, like just this amazing, perfect solution. And I think a lot of times when we're brainstorming and design thinking, we come up with 100 solutions and we're like, well, which one's the best one? And they all could apply at different levels. And what we want people to think about is if you were to organize them in sort of this CARE, which is kind of our little medical theme that you'll see, and really break down the solutions where they fall, you'll get an idea if you're getting to that elusive, like upstream idea. And what I find there in a lot of the examples of, you know, that Dan Heath shares in his work is that often the solution almost seems antithetical to the problem. So he talks about how they had a drinking issue in Iceland and it was being overrun by teenagers, just teenagers out all day, all night drinking. And then it was causing other issues because they were getting injured and there were fights and all this stuff was happening. But what the real issue was, kids had nothing to do. So they fixed that part. It had nothing. They didn't bring in, you know, an AA bus to like pick the kids up at the end of the day and take them to a treatment center. They brought soccer in.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think that connects so much to the work that we're doing in a way that is like a little bit of a blind side, like they're not going to see it coming. But so often we think the immediate solution is to treat the problem. But we really want to get to the cure. What's the cure to this? And so that's our goal, is to kind of think about what are all the problems you have in your classroom? How can we move them into that cure space with different solutions?
Yeah. And this session is really going to be pretty interactive, where we're working through some quick design thinking processes to help people not only like pinpoint what is my focus area problem, but look at all those solutions. And it does stem from our work, because that's what we do with our JJ teachers. They work inside of so many problems and with so many restrictions. We're often helping them solve these problems in their spaces. And I'm sure we might have to go, but Kat has a session she's doing on her own that she should definitely share while we're on the call, because it's going to be pretty cool as well. Yes, you got it.
The title of this is so dope. I love this title because your mind can go everywhere.
I know, right? I figured the word abstinence just brings everyone into the chair. They're like, what's she talking about? So I have now, I can't use the word successfully because I still have 2 teenagers, but I'm like on the other end of raising teenagers, like 16 and 19, right? Like we're on the cusp here, right?
I'm there.
And I always love digital citizenship. A lot of the work of bringing technology into secure spaces is about making sure that kids make those choices and they get to repair their behaviors. So we've been diving into digital citizenship curriculum for 10 years, and I still have a huge problem with it. And my problem is that it's this abstinence approach. Don't send nude pictures. Don't chat with strangers. Don't play video games all night. But here's the truth. All of those things are happening.
Yep.
Sorry. They're all happening. Okay. Instead, we need to focus on the sort of what now approach. I've never seen a digital citizenship curriculum that says, okay, and this is a true story someone told me, and I'm going to use it as an example in my session. A soccer coach has 12 girls on his team in a group chat, and one of the girls accidentally sends a nude picture in the group chat. Guys, what now? The soccer coach is like emailing me, hey, I heard you do something with technology. Can you help me? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. What's that mom doing for her child? What are the other girls doing? It's a mess. These things are happening, and we don't really have a guidebook on how to kind of work through what those things are. I was today at the airport. I see this so often. Someone's going to pay for something, and it's a credit card only business. And this young person only has cash because this young person doesn't have a bank account yet. And there they are traveling by themselves with nothing to eat because we've moved to this non-equitable credit card only space. Are we talking about access? Are we having conversations about that with our students and what that means for such a large percentage of our population? So I just think we really need to shift the way that we think about digital citizenship. We need to remove the shame and just accept that some of these things are happening, and we're really going to talk about them, and we're going to think about all the different perspectives and address these issues head on, and stop pretending like don't bully someone is going to stop that conversation from happening.
No. Agree with you 1,000%. I've always said those moments are when the real digital citizenship instruction actually takes place. Deal with the real and the relevant, what's really happening out there. Because the more you warn them about what's possible, the more they're going to go do it.
Yeah.
Because,
You've given them a roadmap.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm hoping it's a creation lab. We're going to have some different activities and ideas. And I just really hope that folks who attend that session walk away with some practical things they can bring into their classroom and have conversations with kids about, and just get that going. Because one, I haven't met a high school digital citizenship curriculum that actually addresses what high school kids are going through. And we need to stop thinking about this as something that only kids 13 and up are dealing with.
Right.
There are kids in 4th and 5th grade who are really challenged by these issues, and they just don't have the support of the curriculum to make some mistakes and understand what to do next.
This definitely is a session beyond just the teachers. As a high school administrator myself, I mean, this is speaking what has kept me underwater this year. It's the high schoolers in the group chats, the girls and the bullying and all the things being said that I'm just like, and it's crazy because you're right. You tell them, guys, just don't follow each other then. Don't, like, if you don't like her, why are you even sending her a message? Why does she even know your handle? Like, things to us as adults that make sense, but to them, they live in this space. And so if you're, sounds like a discipline AP or administrator, you need to be part of this session as well, because these are the things that I've seen the past year that have been some of our highest incident rates. And now we're talking about these conversations between kids that are happening at 1, 2, 3 a.m. because guess what? I've got to look in the phone and see the Snapchat messages and all of this stuff that's going on. And now they spill over into what becomes the restroom fights that their friends are recording and putting on all of the
Back on social media.
back
Yeah.
on social media, because they create the school fictitious pages, the fight pages, and the slum pages, and the this and that, and it just continues and continues and continues. And then what I'm also seeing is that the parents want us at the school level to make
Yeah.
it stop, and they're saying,
Stop.
well,
Yeah.
you guys didn't do anything about it. You guys let them bully my child. Well, we only found out about it after all this. What do you mean we let them? So
Mhm.
and it's frustrating because you have parents that are accusing the school, you guys aren't doing anything about it. This is supposed to be a safe space. Well, ma'am, take that phone away. How about we start with disconnecting the phone and getting your child off of social media, and let's see how that
Mhm.
works
Yeah,
out.
yeah, you got Valerie
Yes.
fired up.
Yeah.
I know, but the parents
That's it.
are saying the same thing, Valerie. They're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with
Yeah.
all of this.
Well, and I love too how like you can be a digital native and a digital naive at the same time. So like
Yeah.
my kids will be like, well, that was on Snapchat, so I didn't have a way to save it. I was like, you have 6 other devices with a camera. Okay. You can take a picture of your phone. It's really not
Right.
that hard. So like I'm done with the excuses. Okay.
Yeah.
None of this stuff ever disappears. If you really want to capture it. It doesn't take like some crazy tech guru to figure out how to say this happens and I want to address it. But I think the other big thing that's falling on administrators' shoulders and parents don't know enough either is we don't know the digital laws. Let me tell you, there's a law in Texas called the Romeo and Juliet law.
Yes.
Do you know about this?
Yes, I do.
You can text and sext anything you want to another person you're in a relationship with if there is a 2-year gap and both of you are underage. So if you are 12 and 14 and you want to send all the pictures you want to send, there's nothing illegal about that. So you can come into the school, you can call that parent, you can do whatever you want to do. Now, once that relationship's over, I don't know, 3 minutes, 2 weeks, 5 months, who knows? Those things are over and need to be disposed of. They cannot be shared. That cannot be something you continue to access. And how do we prevent that?
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Wow.
It's really looking at it too. We talk about this often. The term citizenship for this doesn't even make sense. Because if you look at like how many of our students are natural born American citizens and don't even understand what the term citizenship is going to involve. They don't understand coming from another country to a new country and having to disavow your other country and having to adhere to new cultures and new customs and all of that to take on the citizenship of something else. Like it doesn't even make sense to have the term digital citizenship. Kids, I fully believe, this is my soapbox, I fully believe that kids are not going to understand that term itself, let alone all that Kat's describing of what it entails.
Well,
So
and
we talk about being like responsible digital people in the world. That makes a little more sense than that term citizenship.
Kayla brought up my favorite word, so I have to share this just real quickly. Soapbox. So when it comes to digital citizenship, I'm not originally from Texas, as I'm sure you can tell, but I have lived there for 12 years. And I walked into a school one day and saw this sign that said, we can take your cell phone and charge you money for it. And I was like, what policy is this? So I like dug in, I found this policy. It was written in the 90s. Y'all, it references pagers and beepers. And basically says if something vibrates or emits some kind of message and it's electronic, that we can take it from you and charge you a fee, right? So I'm working with this district and I asked them, because we're rewriting their acceptable use policy into a responsible use policy from scratch. This thing they have is like 13 pages long. It's literally like everything a kid's ever done wrong with technology in a list that they make
Right.
every kid sign, right?
Right.
And I'm like, this isn't working. And I said, let me ask you, do you guys adopt this policy where you charge people for their cell phones? And they're like, oh, yeah. And I was like, okay, so what other behaviors do y'all charge for?
Right.
And they're like, what? And I'm like, how much does it cost to get up from my seat and sharpen my pencil?
Great.
What does it cost for me to be in the hallway when I'm not supposed to be in class? I just don't understand. Like, what other cost do you guys get? And they're like, no, this is it. And I was like, and what do you spend that money on since it goes into your general fund and no one's tracking it? And they're like, our honors program. And I'm like, so you take from the kids that always get disciplined. You take their money, people who probably don't have it and need those phones more than anything because they're going to get all their siblings, they're going to be babysitting, and they're going to be doing everything they need to do after school. And then you give that money to your honors. How do you sleep at night?
You get them certificates and plaques.
Guys, like
Oh, man.
Houston ISD made $1 million
Oh,
on this
yes.
plan.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you're
nuts.
not talking about like $20 a quarter here. This is a lot of money.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they're charging 15 to 20 bucks, to get your
Yep.
device back. Yeah, I know. I've fought a lot of those conversations, for
Yeah.
And
sure.
if you don't pay it within a certain amount of time, they have the right to keep your device. Because it was a pager, it was like $75. Now phones are $1,000,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
crazy.
right?
Wow. I might have to come to that one, but I'm gonna have to learn how to not be quiet because I'm gonna have to shout a couple of things in that particular session.
I hope you do.
I got a lot to say about that for sure.
No, but these conversations definitely are intentional. And I want to say, ladies, thank you for just taking the time to really think about meaningful conversations to present and propose at the conferences. Because those of us that are conference goers, sometimes we're just there for the people. We've seen the sessions recycled and done over and over again, but to hear what you guys are presenting, it brings life to, I really want to be in the room to hear this stuff because it's practical. And so thank you for just doing the work and doing good work. And best of luck to you guys as you present at ISTE.
Yeah, I want to
Thank
thank you
you.
guys for. I can tell that you're really passionate about this work. It is written all over your face and your body expression. So thank you, for internalizing this work and really doing it because you believe in it. So that's evident. I just want to make that point here today.
You found you some more doers tonight, Brian.
Absolutely. That is great. We thank you guys once again for joining us. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you put their sessions on your list. There they are right there. There's the first two. And then of course the one on the banner is the one on abstinence. Love it.
And if you're not at that student panel, I am going to judge you.
Indeed. And well, thank you guys for joining us this evening for our ISTE review. Remember, we only got a couple of days before we get down to Nolens for this conference. It's going to be a doozy, as you can tell from the guests that we've had tonight. Whew, I'm full.
Yeah.
I'm full, Valerie.
I'm telling you. Look, I'm starting to second guess missing out. I'm like, man, I got to be up in the space in the building. But no, these were very powerful conversations tonight, and I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah, so if you guys are like Valerie, not going to be at the conference, don't worry. Make sure you follow the hashtag #NotAtISTE. We're going to make sure that we include you, as much as possible, or follow the hashtag #PassTheScope.edu. I'll be posting from there as well. So thanks again for joining us this evening. We'll be back tomorrow with another preview session. I've got several people on here as well for tomorrow. It should be great to get you ready for one of the greatest conferences of the year. So thank you guys once again for joining us. We love you. We see y'all later.